So this first bit using stencil number 1, I am doing in my daily everything journal. And so this is stencil number 1, and one of my favorite ways of using these stencils is to come in with gesso, because you can write on it really nicely, especially with felt tip pens, which are one of my favorite ways to write in these. And so that's what I'm going to start off with. And since I'm just using a makeup wedge, I am using Post-it notes to block off the rest of the stencil so I don't go beyond the stencil. And when you're stenciling like this, you need to make sure you don't have a ton of paint on that cosmetic sponge, or it will splooge underneath the stencil. And you'll see here in a little bit, I will make that mistake of just adding too much paint. And now I'm just coming in with some Distress Oxide ink and an ink blender and going through the little detail of the squares with this color in pink. I think it's Warren lipstick, but it's just adding some detail. And you'll see how I do that moving forward in many different ways. It's also a great way to hide some imperfections. And I'm just going around the squares of that stencil now with a fine point marker. And here you're gonna see the spooge that I do by using too much gesso on that makeup sponge, and also probably getting a little aggressive with how I'm applying it. And again, I'm just using that Distress Oxide to add some accents to the page, but also I'm going to use it to kind of mask some of the areas that were imperfect. That's one of the things that I like about working with stencils is they're only as good as the user uses them. And so they generally lead, stencils will generally lead, or those imperfections will generally leave some creativity and end up making a page or the piece that you're working on. And that is really fun. And you'll see in a little bit how I will handle the splooge marks. And actually I end up using that all over this page because I thought it was so neat. And now I've pulled out that fine tip pen again. This time I believe I'm using a Sharpie because the original one I used, I didn't really care for the fineness of the nib. And this gives you a much more distinct mark. And I'm just making some irregular, squiggly, sketchy type marks around where some of the feature edging is on the corners of those boxes. Now, with the stencils, when you purchase a stencil, you're also going to get the guts for that stencil. If you buy the whole set, then you'll get all the guts for all the stencils. And they are awesome to use. And this is how I discovered how to really hide some of the imperfections and make those squares just really pop off the page. So I'm using them to mask off what I've previously stenciled with the actual stencil. So I'm using the guts as a mask and then going around and adding ink to the outside edge of those boxes. So now I'm coming in with stencil number 4, and these are like a lot of accenting marks that mimic some of the shapes that have already been used in the other stencils. And I'm going to just add a bit of decor to the pages that I've already gone through and created my boxes for my planner, and just add a little decorative elements. Now I'm going to be using archival ink to do that, but you can use paint. You can come in like I did with the fine tip pens. You can even fill in those with pen marks. There's so much that you can do with stencils. And this video scheduler, if you are a YouTube video person, or you have a channel, or you do regular videos on your Instagram or TikTok or whatever social media you're doing that on, this is a great method for scheduling your videos. And this is a download that you can get purchase in my shop, and I'll leave a link down below. This is stencil number 4, and I'm using the large opening section, the swoopy kind of space that it provides, nice and big, on the cover of this DCPJ, or Daily Creative Practice Journal. And then I'm coming in with the guts, so the mask of that same shape, to place over the area that I just used gesso on through the stencil, and coming in with some black paint to add a shadow. this is stencil number 4, and I'm going to be adding this to the inside of the same DCPJ using the gesso with a sponge technique once again. And this time I'm going to come in with the guts or the mask of those same shapes and use a Sharpie fine tip pen to give it an outline around that shape. And now I'm coming in with the Stabilo All to do a little pulling out of that shading, so it's a nice crisp line with that Sharpie, and then kind of fading it out to the edges with a little bit of shadow with that Stabilo All and a water brush. I've come back to the cover and I'm using a fine tip roller ball pen, and I'm just doing some sketchy lines along the edge of that just to give it a little bit of playfulness before I come in and add the month information to that front panel. To add the month, I'm using an Art Foamy, which I'm just using a Posca pen on the front of it to ink it up. In this case, I'm painting it up, and then I'm going to stamp it and then use that as an outline to come back in with that Posca and really darken that up. And now that that's dry, that paint, the black paint from the Posca pen, I'm coming in with a fine line pen in white and giving some highlights just to show where, kind of give you the idea of where the letters change into the next letter and kind of highlight that a little bit. And so for the rest of this DCPJ, I go through and I add the same stencil throughout and treat it the same way I did that first section, and just go through and push the gesso through the stencil, outline the shape using the mask or the guts from this one, and outlining it with the Sharpie, the fine line Sharpie, and then coming in with the Stabilo all in the water brush to give it a shadow.